Hello, Osu gamers! This video doesn't really need that much of an introduction, so I'll keep this really short, but basically, I got the opportunity to sit down with the creator of Osu, Peppy himself, and talk about the future of Osu and Osu Lazer, upcoming stuff in 2021, and just a ton of different topics that you'll see throughout the video. And I'm gonna have timestamps in the description and in the pinned comment for those who want something specific to look for. And that's really it. So let's get right into it. Thanks, Peppy, for joining me on this talk, this interview, and subscribe if you're not subscribed. So, okay, Peppy, how do you prefer to be called? Peppy or Dean?
Yeah, or whatever
Either
you're comfortable
one.
with, yeah.
I have you here to ask some questions about Osu, about Lazer, about the future of both of those, and just some other general questions about things like featured artists, things that people have asked me about that they're interested related to Osu, like copyright related issues, DMCA stuff, which kind of relates to maybe featured artists as well for the future of Osu, and just a few other questions that I have myself, some things I'm curious about. But mainly, and what we'll start with is I'm interested in Osu, future of it, and just that general topic and having a conversation about it. But before I get into any of that, before we get into any of that, do you get upset when people call Osu Osu instead of Os?
No.
You don't? Okay.
No.
I was curious because...
No, I mean, as with everything, like, each to their own. There's no correct way. I don't even know if the way I say it is correct. I mean, yeah. I think in the original, the game which started this whole thing, like Os Tatakai Oendan, like in all the story and everything, so that they're always like Os. Yeah, it's like a very pronounced, because it comes from like the martial arts side of things. So
the thing that I'm just going to start with is, and I was going to save this for later, but now that you've brought up Os Tatakai Oendan, what is it like having gone into creating Osu as something based on that game and now having it turn into something with a community of, I mean, at least registered accounts, like literally millions of people playing a game that they probably never heard of, the game that it's based on?
Yeah, well, it's kind of a scary thing, isn't it? When I started, it wasn't meant to become this big, as you probably know. I mean, I've mentioned this many times, but it was more just like a little project I was, messing around with. So to have it become this, I mean, it was kind of my doing, because I was the one that kind of wanted to create this community focus in the first place and get more people involved. And, it was a really close-knit community in the start, and we just built on that as people have asked for new features and stuff. But yeah, in 2020, like how many years? I don't know how many years we're in. 13 years, I think.
Yeah,
it is kind of scary, because now you have these the original people that were playing the game were familiar with Os Tatakai Oendan. They were looking for this simulator, but these days it's like this circle clicking game, which also has like 8 or 10 other circle clicking games which have been inspired by Os that exist all over the place as well. And yeah, as you said, people just don't know the original game, and it's scary, and it's kind of sad, because like the original game is what made this happen. So I want more people to enjoy that, experience the story and all the aspects which Os doesn't have that the original did.
It is really fun. I played the original because I feel like I had to. And it's so centered around the campaign, that game, and like the little stories that the characters go through and stuff as you're cheering them on and playing the songs. Osu has, I cannot believe, there's not many games where it starts out as just this, I mean, it still is this free thing for people to enjoy, and have it grown to what it is now, and have the amount of people who want to support it keep increasing. And it's just crazy to see a free indie game essentially grow to that level just from the community being into it. I feel like nowadays there's not as many games that are like that.
Especially like these days, everything is ad supported or has in-app purchases. All the games these days have been forced, I guess, to fit this mold. And I like to do things differently. So I'm glad we've been able to keep going as we have.
I'm glad
that's such a different direction.
I'm sure that a lot of people would hate to see ads inside of their beat maps as they're playing. There's so many random little things that I want to get into that I'm interested in, but now I'll save those for the end. For now, I should talk about Osu Lazer. That's the main thing that people are going to be most interested to to hear questions about and hear what you have to say.
Sure.
Just have like a sort of proper Osu Lazer update now, getting into the new year when so much related to Osu Lazer has changed just in 2020. So first, what is Osu Lazer? For a very basic understanding for those who aren't aware, what is Osu Lazer?
So lazer is kind of the code name we gave to the next version of us. It's going to be the next major update. That's the simple way of putting it. It is an update. It's not a new game, but it is also a rewrite from scratch. So we've thrown away all the old code and aimed to re-implement everything in a more sustainable, a more flexible way. And the primary goals there are to, first of all, allow more extensibility. People can make their own game modes, as you so well know.
Yeah.
But also supporting more platforms. So Lazer will run on Linux, macOS, Android, iOS. People have got it running on Switch and stuff.
Oh yeah, I've seen that.
It's aimed to be fixing the compatibility side of things. And really just the other thing is it's open source. So doing things in a way where I am happy to publicize them and hopefully create a strong base for Oz's future. That was the main goal, yeah.
It's crazy how just this past year of development, 2020, Osu Lazer has had so much progress, at least just from a user's perspective.
Yeah.
Like comparing the beginning of 2020 build of Lazer to the end of 2020 is crazy. Like there's so much more to it. It's such a better experience.
Yeah, a lot of the changes we've made are kind of under the hood. So if you just looked at the main menu, you wouldn't even notice there's been a change. But yeah, before we started this, I thought I better go through the stuff in the last year just so I try and remember what we've got done, because a lot did happen, and I'll go through it quickly if you want me to list it off.
Yeah, I'd be interested, because I was myself before this kind of scrambling to be like, wait, so what happened?
It's so
in the
easy
past
to
year?
lose track. Yeah.
So yeah, I'd be super interested.
Okay, the things we've added in 2020 alone. So this doesn't include the start of 2020 where we added the now known as the playlist system, or what we called time shift multiplayer. From that point onwards, we added collection support, which is done in a nicer way than stable. We added spectator, we added real-time multiplayer just in the last month. We updated song select to be a lot more performant by adding what we call object pooling. That's going to come up a few times. We added the new results screen design. So we went from the circular design to the new panel-based design, which works better for multiplayer and rankings and stuff. We added the Tournament Client 2020 design. That's being used by multiple official and non-official tournaments. And also in that, I added like tournament editors, so it was a lot easier to make brackets. And
oh, that's nice.
We added the classic welcome intro. So the ability to go back to the 2015, 2014 intro. We added the new beatmap listing, which matches the web version with all these different search filters. We added comments display to all the overlays, so the beatmap overlay, the changelog overlay. We updated all the designs to match the new dark theme for the web views, or I mean, calling them web views is disrespectful because they're all implemented natively and stuff. A lot of people don't even realize that they're native implementations there. The ability to move folders, move the data folder to a new location, that was a common request. Then the editor.
God, the editor has had so many changes. Yes. I wish I used the editor, because I know every time I look at the changelog, there's so many huge editor changes.
That was, I guess, my focus for this year. So we added saving support, we added the Tycho editor, we added metadata, background, audio, file support, clipboard, object snapping, rotation and scaling of selection, something stable never had. Hit sounds, control point editing. We changed the timeline display to show all this new information. And plenty more where that came from. editor is in a pretty good state. You can actually make several people have made maps in the laser editor now. There's still a long way to go, obviously, all the edge cases of stuff people need to rely on. Skinning from the start of the year to the end, like a lot of legacy skins people had with all these, there's so many intricacies in the skinning system, and I think we finally got them all sorted. So
that's nice.
The gameplay basically looks the same on stable and laser now. Standardized scoring across all the different game modes. We kind of came up with a new algorithm for that, and it's applied everywhere in the game in leaderboards and stuff, not just in the gameplay elements. Ability to pause replays. We did the gameplay object pooling, which was like 10, 20 times memory reduction and huge performance improvements in loading gameplay. And yeah, just so much more under the hood changes. Those were the main points I had listed anyway.
Yeah, wow. I mean, there's so much in 2020. It almost seems like, at least I got the feeling of in 2020, there was almost a ramp up of changes to OSU Laser compared to like 2019 or 2018.
And that's, I mean, from an external perspective, that's exactly how it looks. Under the hood, it's a bit different because we are obviously developing the underlying framework, and as the years go on, that's gotten gradually in a more stable state. So we've had to spend less time fixing bugs and getting things into a state where we can quickly iterate on development to the point where, new features can be added in a couple of days at some instances.
So when's the no? I was gonna ask when's the release date. I briefly mentioned I didn't want to like fully just take questions from other people in like my Twitch chat and stuff, but I did bring up how I was gonna be talking to you about the future of OSU and OSU Laser, and everyone's like, ask him when the release date is.
Yeah, so it's a difficult question for me to answer because the release date of the original OS was like 1 month into development, and the release date of Laser is the same. Like we started releasing it. So it's kind of a bit like, well, okay, so people see the release date as being when it's going to replace stable, when we're going to drop the Laser, suffix of the game, and it's just going to be called OS.
And a lot of people think, especially associated with like, when can I submit a play and gain rank? And have that be the experience.
Yeah, so that's the main one, of course. And I think we're finally getting to the point where that can start to be addressed.
Really?
Yeah. So the reason I have held off with having Laser update stats until now is because I didn't want to rush things. As you know, OS has always been about keeping historical scores, and we don't delete anything. We don't reset leaderboards.
Yeah.
We don't have seasons. So it's a very hard thing to work with when you have all this previous data that people care about, all these scores that have been set over the years, and then you're trying to innovate. You're trying to fix things like note lock. You're trying to change the scoring system to support 2-hour-long marathons, all these little things where we've designed Laser in a way that we can move forward and fix all these issues that people had. But at the same time, how do we make Laser work with the existing systems, work with the global leaderboards, as we call them? So that's the reason it's been left until the end, and why we haven't seen stats being updated until now. What I want to see happen is I kind of want to branch out from this concept of global leaderboards and try to create some new systems which can give people the competitive angle that they want on the game without having this stagnant global thing, which has got so many years of history and is very hard to make changes with. This is why other games do the seasonal releases, because each season they're able to balance the game further and, discover the exploits that people found in the previous season and learn from them and fix them. All the underlying infrastructure for playlists and for the recent multiplayer edition use like this score submission endpoint, which can be used for global leaderboards when we get to implementing them. So all the underlying infrastructure is ready to support this. What still needs to be done is, figuring out how we bring scores into the existing leaderboards
Mm-hmm.
with Lazer's slightly different approach to scoring and slider head judgment accuracy.
Yeah.
These things which have changed. So it's been good to leave this till the end because while it hasn't been implemented, we've had constant discussions between Smoogie Poo, the other guy that basically tanks the other half of Laser, and myself, listening to what the community has said about Score V2, about laser scoring, about what they want from competitive gameplay, and just learning from that and figuring out how we can implement this in a way that will make people happy and will make people actually want to or able to switch to laser rather than being like, no, I need to stay on the old client because I care about these, certain scoring or ranking or whatever. When would you see ranking leaderboards? I don't know. I think definitely this year we will have something in place.
Mm-hmm.
At a very raw level, my goal is to first of all get statistics updating, so play count, grades, all the things which aren't necessarily having scores on the global leaderboard. That is the next step, just so people can go into Laser and actually see their profile updating, because we get a lot of new players coming in on Laser these days.
Oh, really? Not like that's their first experience with the game?
Yeah, especially on the Linux and Mac platforms where Laser is the version of us that runs the best.
Yeah.
And they're like, why is my profile not updating? Why are my stats staying at 0? And yeah, that's a bit weird. So getting statistics updating is the next step. And after that, it's going to be about rejigging the whole storage of scores. Right now, we're using MySQL as the backend. It's going to get a bit technical, but updating scores. And for instance, when we want to do a PP performance change like the one which is hopefully going out this month, it takes a lot of time and processing power with the way we're currently storing things. And the main thing for me is that if we start to bring laser scores in and start to display them on the global ranking in a way where they can be displayed alongside existing scores, we need the ability to delete laser scores. Like at the beginning, we're going to make it live and be like, we made a mistake. We'll have to roll back laser. It won't affect the score set from stable, but it gives us a starting point where we can iterate on this and make sure everyone's happy with how things are working before we, say, okay, laser is on.
Yeah.
You can now use laser to submit scores. And the current infrastructure, the current data storage doesn't let us associate scores with the versions. So I can't easily find the scores which were submitted with laser.
I see, yeah.
So at a very minimum, that needs to happen. Yeah, so that's kind of what I'm looking at in the next 2 or 3 months, I would say, is fixing up the storage of scores. Then we will probably make score submission live to an extent. And beyond that, it's going to be about balancing scores and figuring out how to make stable work with laser or laser work with stable. And it's probably going to be the former, having stable work with laser. So to touch on, let's just keep it simple and say what people call slider accuracy, which is really like sliders requiring accurate input to the head of the slider.
Yeah.
Rather than just clicking within 500 milliseconds or whatever the window is. There's still controversy over whether that is something we want. But I mean, putting that aside, if we do have it turned on for a subset of maps or for all new maps or something, we need a way for either stable to do that or a way for stable scores to be devalued. So score set on laser where people are getting higher than what could be achieved on stable can sit alongside. So it could mean something like if you're not using laser, you have an upper cap of what your score can be because you don't have slider accuracy being tracked.
Yeah.
So things like that. I think that's my current direction. My thought direction is to kind of recalculate all existing scores. Because the other thing is laser doesn't use score V2. It's using like a V3, I guess, or some call it laser scoring.
A lot of people ask me whenever I'm playing Osu Laser or whenever anyone's playing Osu Laser, so is this Score V2? Is it fully Score V2? And I'm never sure exactly what answer to give because it's a bit different than turning on the Score V2 mod inside of the current standard client. Just the way everything
Yeah.
feels, especially the
So
sliders are a bit different.
yeah,
And
and well, two things. We're still iterating on it. Like we're deciding
mhm.
maybe right now I think it's 70% combo, 30% accuracy for the OS rule set. And that can be changed per rule set or game mode, whatever you want to call them. But we're thinking about maybe introducing more accuracy and less combo, like 50-50 or something. So it's not in stone, first of all. And yeah, the other thing is in 2020, we actually made Lazer start displaying existing leaderboards using the new scoring method. So
Oh yeah.
I think it's song select, you will now see the newly calculated scores because it's doing that on the fly now.
I should take a look at that now on certain maps. I'm curious as to which scores are higher than others, which ones have gone lower down. It is so interesting how a lot of the community, there's a lot of people who are kind of on the fence about things like slider accuracy. Some people want there to be, say it feels more like a rhythm game if there's slider accuracy, whereas other people are frustrated about it in general, like I'm going to get lower AC and I'm going to get less PP. Others are frustrated in the sense of how that would work in relation to like tech maps, for example, when there's a lot of sliders and people have mapped them in such a way that having the score V2 or V3 or whatever it is at Osu Lazer type feeling of those sliders as they currently are seems to heavily impact how those types of maps play.
Yeah, the playability of the map.
Yeah. And so why exactly is there necessarily a need to change it from what it is now? Like with Osu Lazer coming in the future, why is there also these gameplay changes rather than just the design and under the hood changes?
Yeah. So for the people that are just trying to go back to the comments I had on everything you just said, the people that are being like, my PP is going to change or I'm going to do worse, well, those people just need to get better, obviously, because everyone's on the same playing field. So that's my opinion there. I mean, people will adapt or they'll quit, whatever. If you're going to quit over something getting harder or becoming more of a challenge, then cool, that's you. Some people do give up. For it affecting maps like tech maps and that, we're aware of this, and I think we've generally decided that we'll fix that in some way.
Okay.
Whether it's going to be like having a legacy mode or having a mod where you can turn it off, or there's always ways to fix when it's only affecting a subset of maps, and that can be either applied to only previous maps or it can be something which a mapper turns on or off. And the more general question you had, which is why are we making gameplay changes? I see us as an evolving project, and I guess the problem from a user's perspective is that we haven't been making many changes to the game over the last. If you're not playing Lazer, you would think that the game isn't being developed. It's just in like maintenance mode.
Yeah.
And that's a common thing for games, right? A game is published and then it's patched to fix bugs, and that's it.
Mm-hmm.
But that's not what I see us as being. It's as long as I'm working on the project, and I mean, I'm not going to stop working on us. I want to keep making it better, making it something the community can continue to grow around. And that's kind of the gameplay changes we're looking to make are hopefully going to extend what can be done in the game.
Mm-hmm.
And the kind of from a player angle, adding slider judgment accuracy is increasing the skill bar. It means we're tracking one more thing, which players have to care about. And from the mapper's perspective, it's mixing things up more. And it's something like breaking the mold is something important, I think. And the fact that we haven't done it has gotten people into like this state where they're content with how things are, and changes the enemy. It's definitely like understandable that people don't want to see the gameplay change. And all I can really say to that is that we will continue changing the game, and the same with the performance system. Like, it was never supposed to be the same algorithm for a whole year. We were supposed to keep iterating on it and making changes as people pointed out issues. And we're starting to do that again, which is cool.
Yeah, I definitely think that's really cool.
But yeah, it's going to keep changing, and where it does affect like the playability or the enjoyability of previous beat maps or players that just want to play in the old way.
Mm-hmm.
Well, first of all, stable isn't going anywhere. We'll continue supporting it for years into the future. I mean, we still have stable fallback running, which is a 2015 version of OS, and
Yeah.
that's still submitting scores to some extent.
Mm-hmm.
There will always be this option of going back to the old for the people that just don't want change. And if something like slider velocity, as I said, affects tech maps, we'll definitely accommodate. We're not going to be like, yeah, screw you guys and your stupid maps. You shouldn't have done it this way, because that's not what OS is. OS is about mappers' innovation. Mappers have like guided the game into the skill level it is today.
Yeah.
So it is something I think we respect and will continue to work around. And the other thing to note is that when we push out new features or new gameplay changes in Lazer, people think that like something goes live and that's there forever.
Yeah,
that's not
people
how it
are
works.
like, I can't believe this is how it is now.
Yeah, and it's just like this whole rage thing that happens. Like one person will tweet this thing being like, they've added this new thing and it's the end of the world for us. I'm going to go play because screw the official game. But that's not how we work. It's we listen and we refactor and make changes as required.
Yeah, I remember when the I don't remember exactly what it was, but something with the hitboxes being squares on circles, and people were like, "This is the end."
The funny part about that is even with like thousands of people playing Lazer, no one noticed it for like 8 months or something.
A lot of people started noticing it as a couple more bigger players and streamers started properly playing the game. And once a lot of people started playing it more and playing harder maps and streams and stuff, they were like, this feels a lot easier to hit in certain ways. And then people are like, wait a minute.
It's almost like the circles are bigger than they should be.
That's interesting to know about, like, possible things for current maps, like tech maps, how even the potential for there to maybe be something added that is a sort of like legacy mode or thing a mapper could turn on or off to make a map work the way that people would expect it to work, related to sliders and stuff like that. Having that option definitely would quell a lot of fears that certain people have, and mappers as well. I know there's some who have said like,
oh yeah, definitely,
like I can't innovate now because of...
The mappers are a lot more vocal about these things than players. Even I think the players, most of the large threads or the YouTube videos on this stuff have been by mappers, and then players have just jumped on. The mappers actually bring good points to the table. And
I'm not a mapper, so I don't want to like speak too much about the Osu Lazer editor and certain changes and how they might be good or not. But as a player, as someone who's so interested in maps and playing them, I'm really excited seeing those changes to the Lazer editor and how that's going to allow mappers to do more than what they can currently do.
Definitely. But the other thing to note is there have been a lot of community members stepping in and making external programs for the stable editor to do the stuff which it can't do. So I think we'll try and get as much of that in the editor itself, just so it's easier more accessible. But yeah, it's cool to see people doing that. The other thing is, like, I don't want to really go into it too much, but I think this year we'll probably add something in the editor or in mapping that will really mix things up and make more people want to play Lazer. Like, I've been building on this concept for a while, and I've talked with some people in the past in private conversations with Probox and a couple of others about introducing new mapping elements and how it can be done in a way that works well with the existing style without breaking the game.
That interests me a lot. New mapping elements. I'd be super interested to see what that might be like.
And it's something I'm really cautious to talk about and also to do, because I've played like Japanese arcade rhythm games where they either add like too many elements to the gameplay, and you're just like, you have to learn like 8 different things on screen, which all do slightly different things, or they add a new element to an existing game, and it just makes the game not fun anymore. So it's definitely something which requires a lot of thought, but something we are looking at in the background.
This is making me really excited related to just mapping and maps in Osu Lazer and in the future. And we've kind of already discussed a bit about like planned additions to Osu Lazer just in the upcoming year. Are there any
Yeah.
other planned additions in the more near future, like I guess within 2021 for Osu Laser that we haven't gone over? I know there's certain things like menu skinning, how custom rule sets are going to work when Osu Laser has like score submission and stuff. What does that look like this year and for with Osu Laser in general?
Yeah, so I see this year as definitely aiming to get laser as something people can migrate to.
Mhm.
So and what that involves is a lot of tidying loose ends. So we have a lot of web views, online screens, like all the overlay views, which aren't completely updated design wise. Also, the whole laser UI right now is not the final design. Flight's actually redone everything, and it's all changing.
Really interesting.
So design updates are going to be something. So getting the editor into a what we can call complete state, or parity with stable editor, just so it can do everything which mappers need. Building on multiplayer and the playlist system to give it the flexibility I kind of saw it having from in the first place, adding free mod to multiplayer, adding free difficulty selection to multiplayer, giving playlists things like continuous mode where you have to play through them in like as a single sitting marathon, maximum retry count per beat map, all this like stuff which is going to hopefully allow people to take that system, embrace it, and make original playlists which mix things up a bit, create a new competitive scene. So from the migration perspective, there's still a lot of work to be done on like the installer, which doesn't exist right now. It's just like this empty window which installs the game. And figuring out how we can get people from stable across to laser, and giving the option to roll back if they don't like it. It's going to be a lot of polish added this year. Necodex is currently working on a revamp of the whole laser sound effects.
Oh, that's cool.
The UI sound effects, and that's we did a live stream of it a couple of days ago, and it's sounding a lot better. Like laser right now sounds not at the bar I would expect from a rhythm game. And touching on that, there's so many rhythm games out there that treat sound design as like a second priority. It's just not given the attention it deserves, and I wouldn't say us is as good as it should be. So we're kind of this year putting in a lot of effort into the sound side of things to get it feeling consistent with the interface, but also feeling as polished and as fancy as the interface. So those are the main things. We're going to keep building on multiplayer, adding co-op modes, adding team versus, bringing back all the things it needs to to cover the existing use cases. We may even drop the laser suffix. The intention is to like have the first release of the laser version of us be like probably including like a season name, and the season is going to be laser, but then the next year we may have a design update where that changes. It's a common thing in games these days. They do seasons, but we'll probably do the same.
I think that would help a lot with, not that this is what you're aiming for, the growth of Osu, but I feel like that will aid in the growth of Osu, having it be a sort of, if it were to be a seasonal thing, like you've just described, every year, every however long. That'd be really, really cool to see something like that.
One thing which I can guarantee will come this year is some form of a skin editor in the game. So it'll be like drag and drop skinning, and hopefully adding some kind of online skin browsing system at the same time. And I don't know how much of the menus will be skinnable, but things like the back button where people, the things people care about the most, where they're adding their own little character on the back button or their own animation. Those are definitely things we'll give priority to when we get to implementing skinning outside of gameplay, which is all we have right now.
Are there going to be, this is kind of a related question and also a random one. I was looking recently at the old Osu Next Tumblr blog. In those super old Osu Next design posts, there's some screenshots of gameplay UI elements where they've completely moved the HP bar and like a different spot of the screen and stuff like that. Is there any plan for that stuff to be possible in Osu Laser?
Yeah, so that will come for sure this year as part of the skin editor.
Okay.
The way we're doing skinning is like all the existing skinning system is called legacy skinning internally in Lazer, and that's the old way of doing it. The new way is that you will be able to reposition elements on the screen. You'll be able to just drag the scale to change them.
Mm-hmm.
It's gonna make it skinning a lot more approachable, and also customizing existing skins. You know, when a user likes a skin, but maybe the HP bar is too big, or maybe they want to change the HP bar to one from a different skin. It's going to be just like a drop-down menu to do that kind of those operations. So I think that'll definitely be coming in 2021 for gameplay. I don't know about the whole UI skinning, because at the same time, as I said, we're going to be updating the UI. Hopefully, because the current laser UI, I do still hear some people which are like, yeah, I prefer stable. But I think the next iteration may change their mind, may bring the ratio of people that prefer laser up. There's always going to be this nostalgic value of the old one, but yeah. And at no point are we going to be like forcing people to switch to laser. It's going to, I hope that people are going to want to switch. That's the end. That's the goal here, is to make lasers so good.
Yeah.
so much better that there's no reason not to switch. And just removing all the edge cases that people are like, I can't use laser because of X, or I can't use laser because I don't like Y. Fixing those cases is something we'll continue to do this year, and hopefully see the number of users switching over increase.
Let's say the majority of people are playing on Osu Laser at that time, whenever it is. Obviously, between the scoring and how things are calculated, gaining PP in Osu Laser, would people still be able to play, I guess, on the fallback client at that point, which is now the stable client? Would people still be able to like submit scores for rank and for PP in the competitive sense when it's kind of an outdated system by that time?
Yeah, I would say we're going to support stable for a similar period to stable fallback is right now. So maybe 5 years after laser is considered released, or considered, you know, what I would call released is we are happy with the way scores are working intertwining with stable, and we're ready to turn on scores and never delete scores because we made a mistake or decided to change balance. But yeah, from that point on, I think stable will still have a life, and hopefully gradually fall off just as stable fallback has.
Yeah. Another common question about updating to Osu Laser and how that's going to go. I think there's a lot of misconception. I don't even exactly know myself. Is it going to come, I guess, as an update? Like, are you going to open up your stable client and see update version, and then it is now Osu Laser, or as we know it? Or you're going to need to install a separate new
it'll
Osu
definitely
client?
be an update, because I've always been about like making things as flowing as possible, making the UX of everything really good. So in a similar way to what we did with stable fallback and the new stable version, we added like a banner at the bottom of the screen in the first year or so, being like, there is a new version, click here to switch to it, and then there was an option to switch back. So we'll probably do a similar thing. It's going to take, as I said, that's one of the focuses this year, is figuring out that migration process and the installation, making all that better so we can make this happen. But that said, we will also give people the option of running things side by side, running the old version and the new version.
Well, I think as far as laser goes and the future of the current client and plans for it, that covers a lot of what I was interested in related to those two topics. The final main topic that I kind of want to discuss is how the future of Osu looks in relation to copyright. Are you worried at all as Osu gets bigger, more content creation around it, more streamers playing it, more YouTube videos? Is there any concern about how the even though it's a free game, the unlicensed use of songs?
Yeah, I mean, it's always something on the back of my mind. It was never like my goal to make it so easy for people to upload content without correct permission, but that's kind of like how rhythm game simulators have always worked, and how they have to work to some extent. Am I worried? No, I've never been worried. It's something on my mind because I don't want to screw over artists. Like, I don't want artists feeling like us is screwing them over or making them lose revenue. So from that perspective, I am always concerned, and it's not concerned about Os's future. It's concerned about artists' perspective of the game, and because I've always tried to make Os like do good for the world, have people enjoy it, have people, you know, use it as a way out of depression, as a way of finding relationships, you know, friendships. So if in doing so we are damaging like the creative scene, I see that as a negative and something we need to improve on. And that's why we've put so much effort in, especially over the last few years, into the featured artist program. If a large label decided to take on us and be like, we don't want you to exist, they could probably take the game down. And if that happened, yeah, that's one of the reasons Lazer and everything is open source now.
Yeah,
means that, you know, the game, the infrastructure, everything is still existing. So if someone else wants to take over, or if we decide to redo it from scratch in a slightly different way, it makes that a feasible angle. But at the same time, we have been putting in a lot of effort into the featured artist program and a lot of money. Like in 2020, for the first time, we Os was at a loss overall because we managed to put in so much money into featured artists that it used everything that was coming in, which has been my goal from the start. Like the idea of giving everything back to the artists that goes over our running costs. I mean, the end of 2020, we've been running at such a loss that I don't think we can keep up the current rate of featured artists, but we also have this huge backlog. So I don't think we're not in trouble financially or anything, but I'm very happy that we got to this level. And from what I've heard, the Asian regions are the hardest to deal with because they have very strict opinions on copyright and usage and stuff. And from what I've heard, the view of what Os is and how Os sits in the whole rhythm game ecosystem has been improving as a result
of featured artists and stuff.
And and we're finding it's starting to become easier to, you know, work with Japanese artists in the first place. They're more willing to ask us like what's involved rather than being like, sorry, someone uploaded my music to Os in the past, I'm not willing to work with you because you're using that illegally. As for what we are doing outside of the featured artist program, the two main goals I have, or let's say three main goals. One is to increase the awareness of users and beat mappers, particularly over how copyright works, and make sure they're aware of when they upload content, they are responsible for that content and they should be getting correct permission, not just for the audio, but also visual elements and, you know, anything really. And we've made some bounds on that. Even like that's one of the larger things I did for Stable is adding this kind of information and confirmation as part of the BMAP submission program, the system in Stable to make sure mappers, you know, go through this process and consent that they have got consent. Yeah. The second thing is with Lazer and with the mobile releases specifically, I think that's an area we want to potentially limit the scope of what's available to featured artist content. So that may be how, when we do the initial mobile releases of Lazer, when we actually get it out of beta, whatever you want to call it, it may be that the bitmap listing only shows featured artist, or by default only shows featured artist, and you'll still be able to load in other maps. But I see that as maybe a starting point for getting things a lot more legitimate. And because there's a lot of players these days that come into Os and are like, I wish it was just featured artists. Like, I wish Os was legitimate.
Yeah, I definitely see there being some bit of like, not illegitimacy, that sounds really bad. But I guess like when you see featured artist maps in songs next to something that seems less official. Yeah. Like a Despacito meme edit that's been ranked.
Yeah. But at the same time, we need to understand like Os was built off this, off people being able to have that creative freedom of loading up a song that they enjoy, not necessarily one we've specified, but one they've actually enjoyed. And this is how the whole game started, is like I worked in a supermarket back when I was playing through Ostatakai Ondan, like back in the early days. And I was exposed to the BGM. I think we had the radio playing actually. So like I learned a lot of the pop tunes from that era. And after playing through Ostatakai Ondan, I could just see like the circle patterns, the slider patterns in my head. So that's why I made Os, is so I could actually make maps for the songs I wanted to see maps for. So people that are saying like just ban all non-featured artist maps, it's a harder thing to do. It's a very hard situation, as I'm sure you can understand. I'm not ready to like turn off submission of non-featured artist maps, but we're definitely working on giving featured artist tracks, beat maps more focus, more prominence in the rankings. And the other thing is year on year, the tournament scene, we're using more featured artist content and like getting original compositions made for the tournaments, that kind of thing. So for the official usage, as far as us is concerned, we tend to have everything licensed these days. Any kind of official videos or content or contests or tournaments we run, we tend to have that covered. So leaving users having the freedom, but also trying to guide the game in the correct direction, and at the same time having in the featured artist program, reaching out, like we are basically working down systematically through the list of ranked maps and reaching out to every artist and trying to get clearance and otherwise removing content. We've done more DMC removals in the last year than ever before as well, because a lot of featured artists, part of the criteria of them coming on board is that we remove the tracks which we can't get permission to use. So it's a common thing for rhythm game composers, because I think basically every other rhythm game out there looks for exclusive licensing when working with artists, and that's not something we will ever do. Like even if we get originals made for us, we're never doing exclusive, because I don't want to be that kind of game. But in those cases, we quite often do have to remove these licensed tracks, and in exchange for that, we're getting 40 tracks from the same artist covered legally for use.
This reminds me, well, first of all, it's interesting because a lot of people don't know that any featured artists are paid in any way, or that anything is licensed. Even I originally, however long ago it was when the first featured artists were introduced, it was almost thought to be they had some agreement. I think a lot of people are unaware that there is any monetary exchange or
definitely
licensing.
And I'm not sure if we should make that more prominent. I kind of want to obfuscate the whole financial thing from us altogether. So maybe it's for the best that people think they're just agreeing with us. But we pay sometimes some very extreme amounts to get artists on board.
How much did you know? Just kidding.
The most we paid for a single track, and the thing is with licensing music is usually the period of the license is limited, and that is a very hard thing for us, because we have people uploading maps and they expect their map to be available in 5 years. But usually licenses have a term of agreement, and we push as much as we can for getting indefinite. When working with some of the larger labels and publishers, that's just not an option. They're like, no, we cannot do that. I think the worst case we've had so far is paying something like 3,000 for a single track for 3 years. So you're paying that every 3 years to keep the track in the game. And quite often with those kinds of licenses, there's no guarantee that they'll be willing to renew it. So you may just lose it. Those kinds of deals are hard to warrant doing in the first place if the map's potentially going to be deleted, because we're going to have mappers be like, oh, it's a featured artist map, complete their map, and then maybe a week later it's the end of the term and the map has to get deleted.
That would also be interesting because of how many people who play the game mostly focus on the ranking and PP system. That would present some issues with let's say a featured artist map is something that ends up gaining people lots of ranks, and that map was then no longer available.
Yeah, exactly.
People would get upset.
And as a disclaimer, that amount I just mentioned, that's not how much we pay for every track, because we would be bankrupt. We wouldn't have been able to get 120 featured artists or whatever we got so far. It's usually quite a bit lower. But
Well, it is really cool how many featured artists have been added, especially recently. And then how, if it was to be the case that only featured artist songs and maps of those songs were available and nothing else, it is almost to the point where even now, it wouldn't, I mean, this would still be thousands of ranked maps available of those songs and from those artists. It wouldn't be like in a absolute worst case scenario in that regard. Now with all the featured artists, it wouldn't be that bad. So that's good to know. At least there's like two main things I want to make sure I touch on before I'm done. Monetary related stuff. Whenever money is involved with Osu, how you are against the monetization in certain ways of Osu, whether it be sponsored tourneys or even going to like running ads along the game. Obviously, that's not something you're interested in doing. Being super public about the exchange of money with featured artists and stuff. That's something that you seem to be very against. I don't know what my exact question is, but people are under the impression that you're against anything related to money in Osu. Is that the case exactly?
So as a first party, as the developer of the game, I'm generally against involving money, as I said, when we don't need to, because I think it just it pollutes it. Money never leads to good things in a community project. So we've tried to avoid it as much as possible. That said, I have nothing really against tournaments that like get sponsors and stuff. I think that's really cool, and I think if people want to see us grow as an esport, it's not something I'm going to do. It's not something like I'm willing to listen to the community and give them what they want in terms of game systems, but we're never going to do the esports level stuff like us World Cup. Our community run tournament is the most you'll ever see from us officially. Okay. So if people want like the $100,000 prize esports level stuff coming out of us, which I mean, I can see why people want that. They see these other games out there and they're frustrated, like us requires more skill than any of these games. Why is it not getting the same attention in the esports era? But anyone can do that, and I think with the amount of featured artist content coming into the game and the improvements we're going to see with Lazer, with the tournament client, and just the stuff which is going to come online in the next year or two, I think it's going to make it easier for third parties to do this if they so wish. And there's already some groups out there which are running some really popular tournaments which have larger prizes than the World Cup themselves. So it can be done. And I'm not against that happening. Like, it won't be me running it, but as long as it's done in a tactful way, and even if they do get sponsors, they're not overdoing it. They're not, making it all about the money, all about the sponsorships and stuff. I mean, sponsorships are a necessary evil. If you want money, if you're trying to profit off something, or if you're trying to raise a prize pool larger than what you're going to get from the local community, that's the only way to do it. So yeah, I'm not against it. It's just not something I will be doing myself.
I wonder what it is then specifically that has people, because
I can tell you what it is. It's whenever someone, like, there's a thread on Twitter or something and someone like CCs me in, they mention me into the thread, and I give my personal opinion on this stuff. So if someone's got like a huge sponsor and they're like, what do you think about this tournament getting sponsors? I'm like, well, I don't do sponsors. And it maybe my opinions are seen as like the ruling word or something, but that's not really, that's just, I don't think I phrase myself that well online at times, as maybe has been seen by some recent discussions.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's not something I'm against. It's just something I don't agree with, if that makes sense.
Speaking of people having a certain perception of you about things, a lot of people see you as a really good dev, the free game, the community driven and all this stuff. A lot of other people see you as like on like Twitter and other posts, see you as like a blunt, rude person related to certain things that you say online. There'll be things that you'll say in your Twitch chat or whatever that seems like a blunt statement that can only be taken in one way, and everyone's like, why is Peppy such a dick?
Yeah. I don't know. As the years go on, I'm not sure if it's like me getting old and just like having this old-fashioned style of humor or something, but I think it's more of a personal thing. It's just like how I yeah. My sense of humor is it doesn't adapt well to text format at times. And I don't think people realize like when I say something that I'm like on the floor laughing as I type it, level of not caring. People seeing me as a good dev or like a not a good product relations manager or as a community manager. Yeah, sure. I mean, everyone's open. Everyone's allowed to have that opinion. But I mean, I have been okay over the recent years. Ephemeral and others have been a lot more involved in the community side of thing, and they're doing a great job. But things are still running to this day, and we have a game which is still growing with absolutely no advertising. And I don't want to see us growing. I've said this many times, but I don't care how many people are playing the game. I wouldn't care if like everyone lost interest tomorrow, because I have plenty of other things I can work on. But as long as there's interest in the project, I'm not going to give up on it. I'm going to give it everything I've got. So yeah, I don't know. I must be doing something right if things are still working to this day. And even though I may say some stupid stuff or some controversial stuff, let's say, in the long scheme of things, I don't think any of it matters. And I think people are just too quick to jump on the bandwagon and jump on, as they call it, cancel culture these days, and just be like, said person said X thing, never playing us again. That I don't know. I think people don't have enough outlets these days for their feelings, and they tend to direct it maybe in the wrong places. The other thing is, I think when I talk, I'm just looking to be like efficient. Like I want to get something out of the way. You know, someone mentions something, I'm just like dismissive comment, and then that becomes a huge thing where I didn't expect it to be something which thousands of people saw. It was just meant to be like a go away, I'm busy kind of response. I think sometimes I should just reply to everything in like video form. Do away with this whole text converse.
So I think that the one of the final things to bring up, and even kind of going back to money, there's now more than ever a lot of Osu content creators like myself. And two things. One, I'm interested what that's like from your perspective as the creator of the game, having people be content creators around the game. So just what it's like for you as the creator of the game, your perspective on that. And then the other question I have is your thoughts about, or if you care about, certain people having a full-time Osu content creation job. Do you care at all about people not making money off of Osu, because it's a bit disassociated, but being full-time Osu content creators?
Yeah, no, I think it's really cool. I watch all your videos and I really appreciate what you do. Like, I don't follow too much Oz content creation. But yeah, first of all, I have nothing against it. I think each to their own. Us is, as I said, us is a tool. Us is a community. It's not. I have no right in saying that someone shouldn't be making more money off the content that us is creating than we do from making the game. I think that's all fine. But yeah, like it's really interesting to watch the more creative side, like this, making content of just score, replay, upload, and stuff. That's a bit like, yeah. Whatever.
Yeah.
You can watch that in the client, but sure. But people making more creative content like what you do, it's really interesting to see, and I really enjoy watching all this stuff that it's spurred by us, and it keeps giving.
Yeah.
It's more than a game at this point. It's
that's also one of the reasons why I'm so excited for whenever there's Osu Lazer updates. I'm always very interested in what I can do with it for either a video or just on my stream, and certain things planned for Osu Lazer's future makes me very excited for like certain video ideas and things like that I can do. They really are like every day there's a new interesting thing to do, and it's really cool that Osu allows for it, and the community has brought about all this different stuff.
Yeah, and I mean, slightly off topic, but the amount of rule sets that have been created for
Lazer, I forgot about that.
It's been really cool to see. And one of the main concepts behind Lazer was that we already have skinning, and we already have mapping, which elements of us can't be customized and should be. And yeah, like adding rule sets has meant that people can expand us to support more than the 4 game modes we offer. Yeah, you mentioned rule sets, and I think you wanted to touch on like what the future of them is and how we're going
I
to
completely
implement
forgot to
them in
mention
Lazer.
that.
Yeah, but we do hope to support custom rule sets for like online score submission and multiplayer and everything, and that'll definitely happen this year. I think it's just a matter of like creating a system to check the authenticity of the rule sets and make sure there's no dodgy code in them, and then just creating a simple online database. I'm sure we'll get something up for that this year. And the one thing I want to say to like rule set creators is that try and be creative and don't just like copy every game out there, because we've had some recent issues where game developers that are actively maintaining the game have someone create a rule set that emulates that game, and it's for free. When
a Dance of Fire and Ice.
Yeah, you did a video on that, I think. Yeah, so I think there's, well, rhythm games, like it's hard to be creative because every single concept is already done. You know, take a concept and remix it a bit, change a few things up, rather than just copying every sprite and every original mechanic from the original game.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what Oz has become over the years. We started with something that basically looked like Owen done, but it's nothing like it these days.
I can't. We've been talking for 2.5 hours about so much stuff related to Osu, but even still, there's a couple small, quick questions.
Lightning round
before closing things off. What? I'm not going to ask this. I'm not actually asking this, but someone asked in my stream, ask him who's your favorite Osu content creator. And I said I'm not going to ask him to pick a favorite. Oh no, they said who's your favorite Osu player.
Favorite player?
I don't know.
Yeah, I would find it hard to make a call, even if I was more active in following players and stuff.
Because I assume you're not very active in following the highest PP plays every day that they're set and stuff like that.
I really don't. I mean, I see them happen, and I'm like, happened again.
Are there any future projects that you plan on doing beyond Osu or outside of Osu, or would you wait until Osu is done before moving on to a different project entirely?
Yeah, it's a hard one because like I do have other stuff I would like to do in life, because Oz is my life at this point. I don't really have time for much else, and that's fine. I really enjoy it, and there's so many things to worry about and so many things to spend my time on and investigate and learn. Still learning every day, and that's like, as a software engineer, it's something you always, most software developers are always looking to learn new things, because that's kind of why you get interested in development in the first place. So it keeps me going, and yeah, as long as there's people playing the game, I don't think I'm going to be able to move on for the best or worst. Talking about like other projects, I think I'd be most interested in, like, if Oz was to come to an end tomorrow, the thing I'd be most interested in doing is actually going to work for a company, and probably something like Star Citizen. There's products out there that I see, or companies doing things in a way where I think I would really like to join and see how much I could change for the better before I got fired. Because like I really enjoy like pushing the limits, and I did that in my previous company, and luckily I was on a really good team with a really good boss, and I basically had free reign. You know, if I was doing good things, I was able to do that. But I would like to try it in a bigger company, like even something like Google, joining and seeing how long I could exist in that environment before the inevitable happened. Because, you know, I don't like listening to people listening to rules that much.
Yeah, understandable. I don't either.
But I do. I mean, I also have ideas of other projects I would like to work on as a developer, as a sole developer. But yeah, I've tried over the years to get as much of that into Oz, like, you know, weave the things I'm interested in into the main game. So yeah, I'll probably continue to do that.
I wonder how much longer. There's so many interesting things, like players like Doomsday, who have been playing the game since it came out, essentially. Surely never expected to play it for more than a decade. And me, I never expected to play it for 6 years. 2021, that you released it in 2007. It's growing. It's bigger than it ever was. I can see myself moving to like other types of content as I go on my own path in my life, but like I feel like I can't see Osu coming to an end at any point. Only if like some legal team came in and said shut it down permanently. I can't.
Yeah, really... and I mean, I was kind of hoping for that in the early days, just so I could move on, bringing things to an end. But that's getting like less and less likely as we move on and as we featured artists more, and we're working with most of the large record labels now. It's unlikely to happen, and it's a bit disappointing. Saying disappointing is probably a really bad word choice there, but thinking about like going through my head the different ways that Oz could have ended and just playing out those scenarios, they would be as interesting as the game, or maybe more interesting than the game, continuing on for another 10 or 20 years or whatever, and just having it like, this rare game where it doesn't die after 5 or 10 years and people get bored of it. It's just continuing to grow, and I'm just continuing to add more to it, and it's just like this constant iterative process with nothing major happening. I mean, maybe you can call the release of Lazer major, but yeah.
It's very interesting. Because this reminds me of something I mentioned way earlier when we were talking of like, I can't think of another game like Osu in terms of its 13 years coming up on 14, and it's only getting bigger. It's very interesting, and it's free, and it's, I don't know, it's a very interesting case of a game where I can't think of anything else like it.
You see like game series or franchises where they're constantly releasing new games with new story or new content, or you see like games which have been popular for X years and then gradually the player base dropped, but then you have like resurgence of previous players that want to get that experience again, and you have like private servers going up or people remaking the game as an open source thing or whatever. There's all these different patterns you see previous games follow, but Oz is kind of like different. The game is feeding itself with content, and it just seems to keep growing somehow.
Top players leave, new top players come in. When mappers stop mapping, there's going to be new mappers who are inspired by them, and there's always new music being produced, and there's always more stuff. God.
And in theory, it's going to get even crazier once we start, changing and adding gameplay mechanics. Once we're done with getting Lazer up to parity.
Yeah. Well, I think that's mostly everything. As someone who's very much a fan of the creators of stuff, it is super, super cool to be able to discuss this stuff with you and talk to you about this. As someone who has had Osu be such a big part of my life and affect my life in so many ways, I'm very grateful to you for creating this game, whether directly or indirectly, having that had caused a lot of good changes in my life. So it's very cool to talk to you now, and I'm very grateful for that.
Yeah, and like back at you as well, because I think, as you say, a lot of people probably don't even know who I am, and I think I should probably be releasing more video content, more kind of dev output than I do, or than our team does as a whole. So yeah, having content like this created and especially having like not just being interviewed by anyone, but being interviewed by someone who has been with the community for so many years, and the questions you ask and the things you want to know about are probably what players and mappers and community members are interested in. It's really cool. And like I enjoy having these discussions, and hopefully getting more of my perspective and listening to your perspective as brought on by your own questions and the ones you've taken from the community. It's awesome,
man.
We should try and do it more often.
It's really fun to have these conversations, people who are passionate about something from different angles discussing it. It's just interesting. But yeah, thank you for coming on and discussing this and answering the questions. And I hope that the people watching this got something out of this, either something you were interested in, learned something new. Maybe you were introduced to Peppy from our talk today. But nevertheless, thank you for coming on. It was a really good time talking to you.
Thanks for having me. It was good.
Yeah, is there any final thing, if there is anything, it doesn't have to be, that you would want to say at the end of the video for those watching related to the future of Osu Lazer, a final message?
No, honestly, I'll just say, like, if you haven't installed Lazer already, do it. Give it a try. Jump on multiplayer. The multiplayer system went live in December, and it's getting used, but maybe not as much as I would like to see it used, just to like stress test it and, give people an idea of where things are going. So especially those that enjoy playing multiplayer, because there's people that only play solo, but those who enjoy that kind of thing, jump on, give it a try. It can be installed alongside your existing stable install. It's not going to force you to do anything. And yeah, follow the development. We're getting close.
You guys, make sure to install Lazer. It will be linked in the description. And I think with that, that's pretty much everything. So subscribe, I'll say at the end.
Subscribe.